pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have one item that was to discuss today originally, which is the drought issue. The second item is going to be added to the agenda, which is a letter to the Board of County Commissioners regarding the litigation on the Carver Bridge. Mr. Moore, when you're ready.
Yeah, we're waiting for Dr. DiLorenzo she was doing her Superman routine, so here she comes. So I can start it off. The reason I called the meeting is because, as you know, we're still under a warm weather advisory, and it will be for some time to come, looking at weather reports. We do know that the state of the river is such that we're probably at a period in time that we haven't been at before. And if you look at a lot of the technical arguments that we've heard, I would once say that they were technically correct, but I don't say that anymore. I think that there's probably not that big of a line between the technical issues related to the river as well as the scientific issues that are related to the river. But more importantly, it has to do with our fiduciary responsibility to be good stewards of the river. And with that said, we have talked in our prior work session about our curtailment plan. As the board knows, we have gone through stage one, where we've sent out notification to our ratepayers and the media. And it looks like with the information that we have been collecting, that we're at a point where we probably should be moving into stage two. As we discussed in our prior conversations, the question would be, in a perfect world, we would be joining hands with the rest of the water providers, and we would be doing this collectively. But I think that myself and staff have really come to the conclusion we can't wait for that. I think that we need to continue in our leadership role by moving forward. And so the reason that I called the meeting today, and I apologize for the communications that went out as it relates to notice, so we're operating under the emergency provisions of our rules, is to share with you what we know since the last time that we talked about the state of the river, because this undoubtedly we're starting to get into the policy part of what we're doing, that we really need to make sure that as our bosses, or that you know what we're doing and that you approve of what we're doing. So with that said, I've asked Dr. DiLorenzo to, and the rest of the staff, Don with our emergency preparedness responsibility as it relates to this, to kind of share with you where we believe the river is now, and talk about what our intended actions are, and then also provide you an opportunity to ask questions before we do what we do. So, Suzanne, if you don't mind, if you could come, and I know you and Don have been working on this together, so I'll just take it the way you want to.
Okay. So I guess let you guys know is that the Oregon City gauge is down. It is not working. They discovered it conveniently on Friday afternoon, and the sensor was failing due to heat. So, that being said, the data for at least the past week, and I would exclude the week before that, should be considered unreliable. So, there was another sensor that was actually quite literally in the pump house inside that can also measure river flow. That was still working, but the problem with that is it will consistently read lower, for obvious reasons. It's actually inside the pump house than the outside station. So at this point, we're flying a little bit blind because we don't know exactly what point the river is at. If you want to go further into the watershed, you can look at the Estacada gauge, which is not a perfect correlation because it does vary, obviously, because you have the influence of the tributaries coming in as you head downstream to us. So on average, that will be different, say, plus or minus 80 CFS, depending on the year, depending on the day. If you were going to go by that gauge, yesterday's average was 677 CFS, down from 692. There is a steady downward trend. Now, the way that our plan is written, we can either move into stage 2 based on continued predictions of low stream flow and hot, dry weather, or we can wait for the governor to declare drought. There are other water providers who are waiting for governor to declare drought in the region. I haven't heard any news as to whether that's going to happen, but if you've been paying attention, we have moved from moderate drought into severe drought for the region, so it's just getting hotter and drier. The issue with having this meeting today is I'm not sure what the other water providers are thinking at this point. We're going to meet with them on Wednesday through the CWP, so I'm not really sure where South Fork is at, where Oak Lodge is at. I have a general idea of like Oswego and what they're up to, but beyond that, if we move forward, we would be flying a little bit solo. So if we were going to go into stage 2, we have a couple of options and ways that we can do it. Don and I had discussed doing the mailer. While expensive, we do find that people pay attention to it. And we got a lot of positive feedback to it. So the stage 2 mailer is set up fairly similar to stage 1, where it's still written kind of politely and friendly, letting people know. There was a little bit of repetition from the stage 1 to stage 2, just in case people didn't pay attention, trying to remind them why we are where we're at. Then it goes into not watering your lawn between certain hours. Please don't water your cars, and all water waste is prohibited, as requesting a 10% cutback on water use. One of the reasons that we want to do this sooner than later is in the event that we do have to move to stage 3, our feeling, at least my department, was we wouldn't want to hit our customers immediately with, you must reduce your water use by 20%. We thought it might be a good idea to move forward a little bit earlier rather than waiting for stage 2 to come about based on the hot, dry weather and the continued low flow, so that at least our customers are on deck and they know what's coming their way, and we're still keeping them informed. We might never hit stage 3, in which case, awesome. That would be fantastic. But if we do, we don't blindside our customers. Going from, hey, you said everything will probably be okay, to all of a sudden I need to come back 20%. So that's where we're at.
So I have a couple of questions. One technical, still having been watching the trend, had a conversation with you a little over a month ago about base flow. I keep hoping and praying that we hit base flow sooner than later. but it doesn't look like.
The conductivity at Estacada has been steadily increasing, and so it's the highest that we've ever seen it. It's still not.
What does that mean?
Oh, so I watch conductivity as a proxy for how much groundwater influence the river's getting. So one of the lucky things for us is that while we do rely on snowpack, we also have those large aquifers up in the watershed. So naturally, groundwater has a higher conductivity, higher mineral content than surface water.
So that means you're getting more groundwater into
Yes.
the river? Okay.
Yeah, so by watching the conductivity, we can determine how much, ideally, it's not a perfect, but relatively how much influence we're getting off the groundwater. Because we've never seen it this low, we don't really have anything to compare it to.
Right.
So what we're hoping by tracking conductivity is at least learning, when our base flow is being sustained almost entirely by groundwater.
So I have some questions. The flyer, so it's going to be a full-page flyer, and it's going to specifically list exactly what people need to do, what the public needs to do.
The mailer's a half-page flyer.
Half-page.
And so it lists 3 bullet points that were taken from our water management conservation plan, which are what they have to do. And then when you flip it over, there are some helpful in-home tips.
Okay.
There's that. And then we will also be giving field staff flyers. Those will be the same thing, but full size. And because it's full size, we were able to add 1 or 2 more tips on the back.
What do you mean by?
A full page. So the field staff would be operations guys, people who are in the field, my field staff when they go to people's homes.
Okay.
Just in case they get questions, they'll be able to hand out the flyer and discuss it.
And then I had another question too. I noticed in the newspaper that Lake Oswego was sending around water conservation counselors to different homes, seeing if they're obeying the water rules. I don't know if we'd ever want to go in that direction, or is that just too much?
So we've thought about this, and we do have sanctions already written up. The way we would probably do it is we would approach it in the way that San Diego's approaching it, but not until stage 3. What happens is people tend to self-police themselves. So we would encourage people to report water rates to us. If field staff was out there and they saw it, then violations and sanctions would be issued. Yeah, but as far as going directly to people's homes, we probably wouldn't do that. We would kind of reach out to the community and have that. And obviously, if field staff is out and they see broken sprinklers heads, then yes, we will be enforcing that. Yeah.
Okay, and the flyers are going to make it really clear that we really want the public to do this, that this is, it's going to be big print and real bold, and
Yeah, so it's still friendly, but stage 3 is when we really get very serious.
okay.
And so right now we're tossing around, things that seem kind of consequential, but not really. Do we print in color? How much do you want this to attention grab? Once we get to stage 3, we already have that PSA written, so if we have to go, we're ready to mobilize quickly. That one, same thing as another half-page mailer, but it cuts out all the fluff. And it lists specifically, very clearly, that we are in a severe water shortage. This is what must be followed. These are mandatory restrictions. And, we can tighten up stage 2 if we want to. We can always do more, we just can't do less.
Okay.
When you go to if we go to stage 3, do you cite the ordinance? Do you say ordinance such and such or so and so requires the following? Or do
We
you want to
didn't cite the ordinance, but we can.
I defer to your judgment, but it's just a thought to consider, so that people don't see it as just an advisory thing. They actually realize that there is an ordinance in place, that it's a law.
Yep, we can add that. Everything that we do is all done in-house, so we can make edits on the fly. It's very easy.
So I applaud your courage. Your meeting Wednesday will be interesting. One of the things that this board is going to have to deal with is the mixed message. we're going to have our people getting a flyer or a PSA announcement, and they're gonna be going, what? Everybody says there's plenty of water. What's going on here? Who's lying? What do we say? I'm serious. They're be going, what?
I think from my point of view,
Mhm.
I don't believe that our publics believe that message.
I don't either.
I think our publics are more concerned about why we're not doing more,
Yeah.
is what I hear in terms of talking to people. At least that's what I'm hearing, Commissioner.
Every place that I've been to in the last 2 weeks or more, where there's been groups of people, and I've been asked to say, what's CRW doing? And I've explained what we're doing, and I've basically used the language, we are taking a conservative, careful approach to husbanding this resource. It's not just also about flow, it's also about water temperature and fish, and we're trying to be as careful as we can with this resource. And I have yet to have anybody go negative on me on that. So I think we're in the better position, frankly.
Works for me.
Larry.
Lee, would you kind of encapsulate what happened when we sent the letter to the county? Because if there's a doubt declaration, it's pretty much got to be championed by the county before the governor will do anything.
Yeah, I had received I think Suzanne got a copy of it as well, a draft letter that the county had put together. It appeared to me that they had gone to every Clackamas River water provider except us and Estacada. I think
They didn't go to Lake Oswego either.
they didn't go to Lake Oswego either. And had asked, which I thought was a responsible thing for them to do, had asked for our input on what the state of the river was. My assessment was what they got was everything but the state of the river. There was a lot of discussion about litigation and all this other kind of stuff. And they were really asking for a policy position or something that would help to inform or frame a policy position as it relates to the river. With that, I notified the Clackamas River water providers that probably overstepped my bounds, that CRW was not going to be a party to that letter. That I was really concerned that we would sign off on a letter that made it appear as if everything's well, and then 2 to 3 weeks later, be in the position that we're in now. And so, based upon that, I asked staff, Suzanne and her staff, ran point on it, and then the rest of the staff reviewed it. I think I sent you all a copy of that to reframe that letter, to really focus on the stewardship issue that really talks about the responsible thing. It's not just about making money. And if really the argument was money, this is kind of my own thing, even where we have put together a plan that says we're going to be 10% short in the months of August, I believe September.
August through October.
Yeah.
August through October.
90 days then, yeah.
My point of view is we've already banked that money. If you look at the higher water use that we've had because we've been in a dry spell for a while, that money's already in the bank. But even if it wasn't, that we really have to look at the river as something that we all need to steward. And so we rewrote the letter, the one that you all saw, and that we sent that off to the county. I had also notified the county that we would be writing our own letter and that we would not be a part of the other document. The feedback that we got as a result of writing that was not well received by our peers. And so there's been a lot of discussion going on about, CRW and we'll probably continue that on Wednesday. But we did hear from the county that they appreciated our response. And they thought that the discussion around stewardship was an important piece. And therefore, they are modifying the letter that they have to include those portions that we had in our letter that address that issue. So that's the status of it. I have asked for a copy of that letter, and I have not received it yet. But they do know that we do want one, and hopefully it'll be in your board packets when we send them out. Yes.
How long ago did you ask for
It was just today, you know, that we did.
It's out of town.
Yeah, he's out of town until Thursday, and so we'll get that.
Well, I can look forward to see if we do go to stage 2, having a PR problem with the public, and that we probably need to go to the newspapers and justify why we're doing it. And of course, then they'll ask, why aren't the others doing it? And so maybe we'll get some good publicity from the fact that we're doing it in a responsible manner.
We heard that with the first letter, and I suspect we'll hear it again. I think you're right.
Are you prepared to make a recommendation to the board at this time?
Just, I have one more question. So, I know the USGS is committed to repairing the gauge. Have you gotten any information back today?
That was that dinging that you heard, that little ring? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my source at USGS. So all I know is that they're working on it. The tricky thing with USGS is funding.
Yep.
Always funding.
It's
So.
the end of their budget year.
And so, as soon as they know, they will let me know. But I don't know. It sounded on Friday as if the whole sensor needed to be replaced, not repaired. And then they were trying to come up with a better setup for the sensor. So I wouldn't count on it being back up and running in the next week or two. So it's gonna be a while.
I missed part of the question. Who
The
are they?
the USGS, who
Oh, okay.
maintains the gauge. Everybody's flying blind
Well,
without,
I think it's a joint ownership, if I'm not mistaken. I think CRWP also contributes to some of that cost as well.
what does it say?
So, in your I'll back off for a second. In your estimation, given the gauge's failure, do you believe the gauge was over or under reporting the condition of the river?
You know,
Can you make an assessment?
I can't, not with confidence. I went back and I plotted the last 13 years of data, and I tried to determine, say, an average difference between the data that I'm seeing now and the data coming from upriver, and it fluctuates. So I can't determine if it was over or underestimating. In the past year, last year, I could tell you that it was running a little bit higher than Estacada by about 40 CFS from July 1 through July 21st is when I got the data. So that being said, I would say that it might have been overestimating, but I'm not confident in that assessment.
And I don't want you to come in if you're not, that's fine.
So the site says that the station in Oregon City is operated in cooperation with Clackamas River water providers
Yes.
and Water Environmental Services West at Clackamas County. So,
Yeah. Clackamas River water providers budgets, I think, $50,000 to $55,000 every year to contribute to maintenance and upkeep of the sensors. Yeah, so, I haven't heard yet whether they'll go to the CRWP and ask for funding to fix it, or if it will be handled internally. I just know that Friday they were scrambling, and they recommended looking at discharge 2, which I don't like because it underestimates grossly. But then when I checked today, discharge 2 was down, so I'm guessing they pulled the whole unit.
So, going back to my original question, are you prepared to make a recommendation to this board as to what you would like to do?
I think that it would be prudent to move into a stage 2 advisory. I wouldn't be adverse to waiting until after Wednesday and just talking to other water providers, because we're ready to go. We're basically just staged and just ready to pull the trigger. So I would recommend moving forward to stage 2, just getting all of our customers on deck and letting them know that, you know, we're still watching and we still care. And then if we do have to go to stage 3, we're not blindsiding anyone.
Do you need a formal motion from this board to act, or is this within the scope of your authority at this point?
It's in the scope of my authority, but we wanted to get this in front of the board. For all the reasons that we've talked about, you guys will probably hear about it. And so if there's something that we're doing that's gonna make the board uncomfortable, we need to know that.
Is there a consensus from the members?
Yes.
I would like to suggest that we go ahead and approve it
Yes.
as a majority of the board, or as a board, just to show that we have confidence in our study, to make sure that people outside of the organization, our organization, understand that we are not sitting still. If you look at the news every night, there's something to do with the drought. Every night, there are several articles, forest fires, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that it really behooves us to go as far as we can.
I agree.
Well, it sounds like you would like to have a motion that basically, it doesn't give them permission, but shows that the board supports their decision. So would you like to place a motion on the floor?
So moved. We support.
A motion of support for general manager and staff regarding going forward on a stage 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Question?
Discussion?
There was supposed to be a second part for a letter. Do we want to do that in a separate motion?
From the closed session issue?
No, the letter to the Board of County Commissioners.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
no. There's 2 letters. Didn't
Yeah.
you want another letter for the Board of County Commissioners about?
That's the one he was discussing earlier.
I don't recall that there was another letter
Okay, so there's just one.
on the drought. It's just one on the litigation.
Okay.
Is what I remember.
Any further discussion or question? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Suzanne, thank you for your work. It's appreciated. Let us know, if you would, let us know by email, telephone call, or whatever it takes if and when you make that decision, just so that we have a heads up, in case we get phone calls.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is an item that came from our closed session. Are you prepared to report on the closed session at this time, or would you prefer to wait for the total report at the next regular meeting?
I think I'd rather wait until the full report comes through. There's no point in getting this right now.
Okay. And the only other item that we have is there's a consensus of the board to contact the county via a letter requesting that the county go forward with completing the Carver Bridge project. So the chair would entertain the motion to do so.
To make a motion?
Yes.
May I?
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
I would think because that was a letter that the board wanted to go from this board to the county board, part of your motion should also include authorizing you to sign it. Yes.
Would you add that?
Yeah, I amend the motion.
Do you mind repeating your motion,
I'd
please?
like
Do you mind repeating the motion, please? It was a bit back and forth.
The motion was to, excuse me, to send a letter through to the Board of County Commissioners, asking them to pursue the Carver Bridge pipeline passing passing over, and that, what's the second?
To be signed by the board president.
Yeah, to be signed by the board president.
Well, I'd like to amend that motion to say that the county should move forward with that project, but try to get, or with the goal of getting the project completed in this work cycle before.
Include that language in the letter.
Yeah, this construction season, yes.
This construction season. Did you get that? Okay. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any other business?
And then just as a point of information, we would have a draft of that for you all to see before it goes out. So,
Yes. We have one member of the public like to speak, so would you step up, sir, and identify yourself?
Warren Mitchell, North District. I don't know what I missed, so I don't know if I could get a copy free of charge. I thought the meeting started at 3. Maybe I was wrong.
Basically, the discussion covered 2 items. A detailed report on the drought conditions in the river and what actions we may as a board or as a district choose to take. And you heard the last results of that when we got here. The second is we are addressing a contractual issue with the county over the construction of a pipe across the Carbon Bridge. And the letter is directed to the County Board of Commissioners to see if we can resolve that issue.
Okay.
And those were the only 2 items that we had today.
Okay, and I didn't see the agenda, but I don't know if you'll allow me to speak on this, but last meeting, I was very disturbed by the lackluster, the joking about the treasury person being elected, where, we can, it's no big deal, you don't do nothing. Well, when I took office in 2007, that's when I discovered the embezzlement, and that's what the same boards prior to me had, that kind of careless attitude that no big deal, you don't have to do nothing, you just pretend you're sitting in a spot with a name tag. And so three days was then taken office, I discovered the embezzlement was going on by one of the employees with the current board. The current board at that time had that same kind of attitude. And it's all on record. I'm just, it bothered me last month when you guys did elections.
I can assure you that we actually do take it seriously.
Okay.
Yes, we were probably a little, what's the word I would want to use?
I think it's wrong.
Maybe we're a little relaxed about it, but we do take it seriously.
Okay, because some of the comments that there did was disturbing. I mean, even if the public was looking at it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Hearing none? We stand adjourned.